And just like that, it's Wednesday, halfway through the week. Achieved anything? No, me neither. Absolutely the square root of sod all. Anyway, hope everyone's well. Hope you're okay. I'm Russ Kane. This is Men's Radio Station. This is The Daily Show. And this is my brand new shirt, which I got to say, I'm pretty happy with. There we go. If you want some merchandise, let me know and we'll arrange it. You know him. You've come to love him. I've no idea why. He is the King of New Malden. There is no greater accolade than that in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Neil Long.
And where's mine?
Well, yeah, there is that.
Where's my merch, man?
Yeah, there is that. I was thinking about that. It's pretty good. I'm pretty pleased with this.
Yeah, very nice.
Pretty good. It says everything it needs to say.
Mm.
I'll get you something. It'll just
Thank
say
you very much
King
indeed.
of New Malden. Right,
when you say something, does that mean it's not going to be some kind of merchandise shirt? You're going to get me something else
I'll
instead?
just send you like a bounty bar or, like a old
Thanks.
box of celebrations or some shit.
Hello, Daniel Rolnick. I know you.
Daniel
How you
Rolnick,
doing?
wow. Robert Van Buren, hello, Ross and Neil. Sam Monroe, hello, everybody. Daniel Rolnick, your mate, hi, Neil. Julie Voice coming all the way from Houston in Texas. Morning, chaps. I want one of those shirts. Well, I'm
He's a very good
considering,
DJ,
I'm
Dan-
considering
Daniel
getting
Rolnick.
them made. Considering getting them made. Anyway, look, big guest, right? We're talking acting. Oh, yeah. We're talking, you paying attention, boy, or what? There'll be questions later. Be questions, Neil. Okay.
Yeah, I'm paying attention.
We're talking soap operas. We're talking hugely popular soap operas. We are only talking Angus Castle Doughty. Da-da!
Hello.
There he is. Oh, you've changed your background. Look at that.
I know.
Well,
I was so overwhelmed by the green screens that
Well,
I
Look,
decided
you're dealing with professionals. Look,
the
you're
very
dealing with
least
people.
I had to do was pull
You're
the curtain.
dealing, I know you're only in one of the biggest, most successful TV shows of all time, but you're dealing with men's radio now, and we have a budget. Angus, I don't want to make your head spin. It's almost double figures. It is almost, not quite, because I don't want to be flat. Thank you so much for joining us. How sweet of you. How
yeah,
lovely.
he means.
Family.
How is everything? How are you?
It's good. I've been a little bit. The past 12 hours has been a touch overwhelming, I'd say.
Oh, what's going on?
We had a big hour-long special that went out
Yes,
last night.
your
at
PR
7
company sent it to me.
Yes, and it it was it just got a huge reaction. At one point it was trending, whatever that means. And
it means you're not Harry or Meghan or
well,
somebody
yeah,
else.
someone
God.
did excitedly message me saying it's trending above Harry and Meghan.
Well, thank Christ for that, because frankly, if I never heard from either of them again, it would be too soon. That's fabulous news. Why do you think, Angus, that it resonated so hard with the public? What were the themes in this particular hour special that people are going, yeah, I'm getting that?
Well, I think we've detailed over the past year.
Oh, see, top actor, crap internet. This is what happens.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I had this with Nicole Kidman. I had this with Nicole. I said, Nick. I said, Nick, for Christ's sake, you're 28 feet tall, very glamorous and wealthy. Fix your bloody internet. She didn't take it well. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I will endeavour to do my best. Unfortunately, I'm at the whims of broadband over in Liverpool.
Yeah. We
I
always are.
understand.
We always are.
You said something which I thought was going to be really profound, and it cut out right at the good bit. So could you go back to the to the beginning?
So we've detailed the sort of fall into loneliness and radical misogyny of my character Eric over the past year, and it's been an exploration really of how social media and algorithms can play a heavy part in it.
Oof.
And
Oof.
last night's episode was a sort of climactic moment in the storyline. It's not the end of the storyline, but it was certainly a peak. And he's lost so much sense of reality that he's now entrenched in these beliefs and this sort of toxic.
And how has he lost? How's it the build up been? How has he? Because this is a huge theme. This
Yeah.
of people, Angus, becoming so. I was watching a very in-depth documentary about it last night. I couldn't sleep, and how people become completely isolated from the real world and just don't have.
I think it's like
reality.
Angus says, it's the algorithms, and it's like if you like this, you might like more of that, and if you like that, you might like more of that, and it can kind of literally isolate you in a kind of a bubble where that seems like that's the whole world, and the whole world operates and thinks that way. When of course it's not. It feels like your world's getting bigger, but it's actually getting smaller. And if it isolates you from the genuine human
is that what happened to your character, the Eric character? Is this was his progression? Was that it?
Yeah, I mean. So there's certainly when I entered the show, there's something going on with the character, but you're not really sure what it is. And he's just spent locked down away from his family and friends, and for, like, spending all his time on computers. And Laura Bates, in her book, she has this great. It's not her research, but she has this great bit in it where she talks about how the algorithm will feed you more radical content with each. So slowly, without even realizing it, you can become entrenched in these ideas. And I think one of the main things about it is as soon as someone thinks they've woken up to the truth and that the world that they've been fed isn't reality, then anyone who tries to challenge that is he's asleep and blind to everything that's going on.
Or people tend to shoot the messenger. If rather than shooting, I don't know, whoever's responsible for the algorithm, it's the person that points it out that will get the most negative reaction. It's almost like a cornered animal, if you like, in my experience, to some degree anyway. It's a big topic. It's a really big topic. I mean, I think social media is a great servant and a terrible master. But and your storyline obviously falls in the category of terrible master. Was it challenging filming scenes like that? I mean, as an actor.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I get asked this question a lot, and for me, people are just people, and I think I have a belief, whether it be naive or not, that people are inherently good, and we're emotions that are wrapped up in big skin bags, really. And I think we can judge actions, and rightly should judge actions, and they're the things that we define as good or bad. But when it came to playing Eric, I was focused more on the emotions. So I tied between the loneliness. And one of the interesting things was when you join Hollyoaks, we shoot it in Liverpool. So I moved from South London to Liverpool. I moved to the other side of the country. Within a couple of weeks, a long-term relationship of mine had fallen apart. I was in a new city. I didn't know anyone. So I was feeling that loneliness. So there was bridges there. And it was interesting as the year went on. And I don't know if this was my mind doing it to make playing the character easier, but there were certainly bridges throughout the year. So there's a point where Eric goes through a bereavement, and at the exact same time I was going through a bereavement. So it was interesting how the parallels continued 12 months. And yeah, I think because I was honed in on the emotional state, it doesn't really matter what I'm saying. Of course, it does to the story and for people listening. But in terms of the playing of the scene, I was getting myself into the emotional state and then just saying the words. So it was certainly, there were points where it got a bit heavy, and I had like was running excessively, and I'd go to a spa every Saturday to put my brain on ice. And Hollyoaks gave me a therapist, which I was really grateful for, because I could just check in.
Oh, really?
What was going on in my life, and that kept me grounded. But the special yesterday, that was actually just an incredibly rewarding experience, really. Yeah, it's definitely there's definitely challenges, but I think ultimately it's just been rewarding.
Here's a nice comment. This is coming in from one of our regulars. And M says, Angus, the incel story, I never know what an incel is. Incel story will get awards. Eric's extremes are not rare.
I watched a documentary on incels the other night. It's not a great thing to be or to believe, certainly. It's a really warped belief system and something I would avoid.
Just for people who don't know, we've got people watching all over the world. Hello to Elizabeth Green in Manhattan. And of course, in Houston, Texas, is Julie Voice.
I'll Google it. They're probably good. Uncle Google.
Give me a definition of that.
Well, incel short for involuntarily celibate. So
is that what it's?
Yeah.
I had no
idea. It started. I think the great tragedy of the subculture and the manosphere that's sprouted up recently. It's actually was started by a trans person who was just exploring the fact that she felt like no one wanted to be intimate with her. So it started with really the word was rooted in something really, really quite positive, and was a space for her to explore that. And then it sort of got claimed over the years. Yeah.
As a lot of these things do, unfortunately.
Yeah,
the definition is a member of an online community of young men that consider themselves unable to attract women sexually, typically associated with views that are hostile towards women and men who are sexually active. And the views are really hostile. Women are the enemy.
And then people turn around, right, and go, why is that jerk Andrew Tate the most Googled name on the internet? A guy with no redeeming features whatsoever. I'm not going to go into anything else because it'll be sub judice, and I'm not stepping into that particular minefield, certainly not on his behalf. But there are millions of lonely blokes who look at that and think, oh, that's the life I want. You're never going to get that life. Wake up. You're not going to have 33 Lamborghinis and Bugatti. You're not going to have it. It's not possible.
And the tricky thing is, even if you did have that life, if you're not happy first, it won't make you happy. If you're happy first, get happy and then have whatever life you want. But it's that way round. Think you'll get to happiness. There's no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. Apparently, Buddha said that, and I think he was right.
Well, I think part of the issue and part of why I think, particularly last night, resonated so much is the fact that it's not just, I've said this quite a few times, I don't think it's, whilst the radical misogyny incel part of it is obviously what we explored explicitly, I don't think that's, it's an exclusive thing. We've seen it with polarizing in anything. Take your pick out of a hat.
Everything's polarized.
And it's all entrenched. And I think part of a large problem, and I've been writing some content with the digital team at Hollyoaks, and we've been releasing videos to try and explore the dangers of social media as opposed to just the good tool that it can be.
Well done.
And I think a large part of it, as you see with Andrew Tate, for example, is the branding around it. So we buy into brands and people project a certain version of themselves glamorously, and then people get sucked into that and slowly get radicalized by what they're saying. So it's not misogyny and these sort of radical ideas used to be older people going into universities and saying inflammatory things, and they would be protest directly in the room. Now that, whilst that still exists with certain academics, now you've got a case where people can make themselves as appealing as possible, suck people in gently, and then knowing that they've got a fish on the line, they can just say whatever they want.
And if anything, Angus, that's more dangerous, I would say, the softly approach, because you
Well,
don't realise
of course it
you
is.
don't realise you're being sucked in.
Well, you're a fifth columnist, really. You're a fifth columnist. You're getting in there, and it's all lovely, and then it's like a con man, and that's what it is. Tell me, Angus.
Because people desperately need this sense of connection and community and communion,
and
if you
they're
like,
not getting it.
with
They're
other
getting
people.
it.
So they will go for so they become really vulnerable in that sense. They are vulnerable people who can be hooked by people with predatory intentions or really bad ideas.
But it's not
like
real
incel.
life. This is the whole problem. And talk about pot will eat itself. Here we've got a fictional character in a fictional world, the world of Hollyoaks, having to communicate to people, watching fictional people, this isn't real life. It's almost meta, in as much as people are better connected now than ever in our history on this planet,
and paradoxically
and more lonely,
lonelier than ever,
more isolated, more desperate, and more completely out of touch with reality. And it's really, really simple to happen. You can see how it's happened. And what scares me, Angus, is if you look to the future, and I'm not wearing a tinfoil hat, this is just facts. What do the major corporations want to do? What is their major push? Their major push is virtual reality. Virtual reality meetings, virtual reality glasses, virtual reality headsets, where you will live in a virtual reality.
And of course, they're building algorithms, of course, to get you to watch even more, because they call it the attention age, and it's eyeballs on screens is the new bums on seats. So the algorithms are designed to be captivating, to hook you in. Have you seen The Social Dilemma on Netflix, both of you?
Yeah, sure.
Did that come out a couple of years ago?
Yeah, it came out about 2 years ago. It's absolutely essential.
I can't remember the name of the other one. The Social Dilemma is one of them, and they were both really good and really insightful. And I showed it to my daughter, who's 28, young professional, and she went, "My God, I didn't realize it was being done to that extent." I mean, I love the modern day things. I love social media. I love media. I love radio. I love I love the good side of all of these things. But the problem is there is another side of the coin, which really bloody does need addressing.
I think I tend to, and I think this is probably more indicative of how I try to view life. I think that there's a chance that with more awareness, I think part of the problem is that this snuck up on us, and now this is a problem. But I do think with more awareness, I think we used to, when we created safe spaces and help spaces for people to talk, it's always been in person, and it's always been in rooms.
Yes, you go to a little hall or something.
Yeah, I do.
You go to a coffee shop.
I think there's a chance for reintegration and engagement and education on the same spaces where people are being radicalized. If we, for example, use TikTok to put out these educational videos, and the idea is that they're tagged in the same way as the ones that will pop up in their feed in more radical terms, in the hope to break up a feed. And I think, like you were saying, as we move into more virtual spaces, I do think that in a strange way, there's a possibility that can actually help bring people out of this way of thinking.
But you know what,
so.
Angus?
It's not the tool. It's not the tool. There's nothing wrong per se with media any more than there's anything wrong with a knife, unless you use it to stab someone. It's just a tool.
Or a gun.
You know what I mean?
Nothing wrong with a gun until you load it.
Well, exactly. I prefer my metaphor, but I get you.
no. The argument is nothing wrong with a gun. The gun's great. Gun's fine. But the moment you pick it up and shoot somebody, it's not so good. All right. The point is, it has the potential for harm in the wrong hands. Social media is exactly the same the same as a loaded gun. If you know what you're doing, it's fine.
I think also there's a bullying issue as well, because when I was at school, you could leave the bully at the school gate. Now he's right here, or she's right here.
But I don't think people quite understand how huge this virtual world is. In the virtual world at the moment, I'm talking about at the moment, and very few, relatively few people are in it, right? Not as many people as watch Hollyoaks religiously and love it. In this virtual world, major manufacturers, I'm talking about McDonald's, I'm talking about Nike, I'm talking about a lot of the fashion brands have virtual shops. And when I say that to people, they go, well, you're talking crap. I go, no. The virtual shops. The next stage to that, think about this, is that you will be a virtual person working in a virtual McDonald's, flipping. I've seen the videos of it. It's all there, flipping burgers and somehow making money from this. But none of it's real.
Isn't it strange? Because
it's real.
I hear that, and I think this is, I think maybe my generation was potentially the last of the just about unplugged.
I'm with you.
We were still quite analog. Yeah. I hear that about going into a virtual world or a metaverse, and there is no appeal. But I think as people have been brought up with devices in their hands, the appeal gets stronger, especially if opportunities in the real world become
precisely. That's the thing. I wasn't this convinced, and then somebody close to me got one of the I forgot what it's called, whatever the brand name from Facebook is, the state-of-the-art goggles. Oculus, is it, or something like that? And it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in a flat, right? And I put these things on. Now, the last time I tried virtual reality, it was absolute crap. It was like looking at Lego. I was looking at Lego, and it was just, it was nonsense. You didn't have any feeling of anything apart from the fact you felt nauseous. This was so all-consuming, so convincing that my mind flipped, and what I thought was not real was the actual flat that I was standing in when I took them off. And I really understand, as people's lives get more and more disintegrated and we get more and more isolated and lonely, you will want to live because it's a much nicer place. I hate to say this, but of course it is. They haven't created Croydon when you put these things on. What they've created is a fabulous world. And you think, I might as well live there. And it's kind of like being a drug addict. It's like you want to escape.
It will, because it'll spike
your dopamine. You're injecting your whatever you're doing. It's hardcore stuff. How long have you been in Hollyoaks? I should know. I don't.
So I started airing on screen in, I want to say February, but I started shooting bits last December, so about a year, just over a year.
And this is I love to get the opportunity to ask actors this, because it relates to the outside world, and people don't always see that. You have to leave your home. You go to a city, sod all, you don't know anybody there, and you have to make a life, and it's really difficult, isn't it? Especially if it's a well-established cast who've perhaps known each other for years, and suddenly the new boy, it's your first day at school. That's a big deal, isn't it?
I think you hit the nail on the head there as well, because Hollyoaks is this fabulous institution, and people they bring through young actors who then go off and do amazing things, and whilst at the same time they've got these brilliant long-running cast members. So you're joining this sort of this big thing, which can be quite intimidating. And I think particularly for me, what I learned was that anywhere I go in my career, if I have to move somewhere away from home, it's going to take me about 5 months to settle in.
Wow.
And I think my friend JP, who's in the show, he did it in the right way. He joined, he found a home where everyone else was living. He joined the football team. He immediately started integrating himself. I was holding on to London quite a bit and was traveling back.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I'd probably do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, and it made
like
it harder once I committed to not going home for a period of time. It was so much easier. I integrated into the football team. I developed a really fabulous group of friends, and all of a sudden, everything, you didn't feel lonely.
My daughter went to Canada for 2 years, or 2.5 years, only coming back for 10 days about every 3 or 4 months. And she said it helped her really grow as a person when the whole thing was a wonderful experience for her. Do you feel, sorry, that sounds so patronizing. It's not meant to.
No.
Do you feel the same for you?
Yeah, I'm leaving. Well, I'm not leaving, but I will be leaving a entirely different person, I think. For the better.
Really?
Yeah, I think.
In what way, Angus? What
Well, they say
way
travel broadens the mind, don't they?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, but
I've got a greater understanding of myself on my own. I lived on my own this year, and I have a greater understanding of the UK. I think I got to see some amazing things this year, and I just feel more like a grown up, I guess. I'm about to turn 28, and it's taken till then to feel like a grown up. So yeah.
Well, I'm a little bit older than 28, and most days I don't feel like a grown up. I'm still waiting for it to happen. Not guaranteed. It's really interesting what you say, like your mate JP and what you then did years and years and years ago. I had the opportunity to emigrate to America, and in a week I left everything with suitcases and went. Didn't know anybody. I was living in New York. Didn't know anybody, right? I went with some British people came out bits over a period of time, and they remained very British. I threw myself into American life. I religiously read the papers because I had no. It's different going to Liverpool, you know. It's not like the moon. But in New York, I didn't know who any of the points of reference were. So I would read the New York Times every day, and I had to train myself. Who are these people? Because I had no idea. Who are the politicians? And I bloody loved it. But was this, because I didn't know anybody, the phone never rang. Why would it? No one knew me. And New York then was rough. I mean, seriously rough. And I thought,
when was this, Russ?
76 to 80.
Oh,
I thought, if I get mugged, and mugging was like rife, how am I going to get home? I can't phone anybody. And I used to carry money, cash, in my socks, not my shoes, because they'd steal your shoes. That was guaranteed. Inside my socks, so at least I had cab fare to get home. But I absolutely adored it. I adored it. But you have to throw, as you've done now, and your mate JP did. If you're going to do that, you got to be 100%. You got to be all in. That's what makes it work.
Can I ask you a question, if I may? What changes would you like to see in social media, given what you've just filmed? And congratulations on the trending and the ratings on it, by the way. It's clearly something that matters to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And well done for portraying it so brilliantly. What changes would you like to see in alignment with mental health going forward, do you think? Because we've established it's a great servant, but a terrible master. But if you put
beautifully put, by the way.
Yeah, I think there it would be helpful to have an in-depth. I don't think this will ever happen because it's worth too much money. I think it's useful to have an in-depth interrogation as to what algorithms are doing, and then make changes based on that. I also think this isn't really my thought as opposed to my dad's. My dad's been banging the drum for years that they should be held to news standard ratings.
Here. Your dad's right.
Because, and I tend to agree with him. I was having this conversation with my brother, and I had just made one of these videos about the algorithm, as well as having a little incel live in my head for a year. I said to my brother, "You are a product of everything you read," and he was like, "I'm not me." And I was like, "Okay, where do you get your news in the morning?" He said, "Twitter." And I was like, "Well,
there you go."
And because it's so algorithmic and it's so based on it's not just, they're not I think the other problem is they're not limited to their spaces, are they? They respond to what you click on throughout the web.
Well, the worrying thing, when I watched this documentary on the incels, there was one guy that got so frustrated and hateful that he actually went out and shot 5 people.
You can see how that could happen in a heartbeat. You can see how that can happen.
Yeah, it's
if you're not careful.
Do you remember that? Do you remember that there was a thing called Single White Female? Do you remember?
Yeah, sure.
That?
Film.
No, hang on a minute. There was a film, Single White Female, and there was another one.
She wants a flatmate or something.
No, that was Desperately Seeking something, wasn't it?
No, that was Madonna. Desperately Seeking.
Right, no.
Seeking.
No, hang on. I'm getting confused between 3 things here. There are 2 things called Single White Female. One of them is a story about someone that falls in love so much on the internet with someone. And then it turns out this person isn't real and he's essentially being catfished. So he goes out and shoots someone in a fit of jealous rage. And it turns out that it's a cheerleader who's fallen in love with the all-American cheerleader. And it turns out it was her mother doing it.
Spoiler alert! You've just ruined the film.
It's a bit of it's an old thing, but it's worth looking at. But it literally just buffers the point. It shows the danger, doesn't it? What can happen.
Angus, here's a question, and then I must let you go because I'm sure you've got a billion things to do. But how have you dealt with fame?
I think that depends.
Do you see yourself as famous?
Well, I always say the same thing. That depends entirely on your definition of fame. I'm a storyteller, and the last thing I'd want is to be famous. I'd benefit from the fact that I look quite wildly different to how I do on the show. I think people are expecting me to be walking around staring at them like Eric does. But I think that's one of the things that's been
the Gary Busey of Hollyoaks.
Yeah, one of the things that's been quite overwhelming about the past 12 hours is, speaking of social media, my social media all of a sudden just exploded because the show, and that I'm still sort of working. I've just muted everything. I don't want to see it. And I love meeting people.
Let me jump in. You don't want to see it because why?
Well, there's just a lot. Notifications would be pinging off all the time, and that's a distraction from where we are right now.
You know what's great about you? I'm allowed to say this because I just am. What's great about you is you're totally grounded. You're totally. I mean, I knew that the moment before the show started, we were just yakking, right? And I was just seeing if I could hear you. You're just a completely grounded person.
And I wonder if my mum would agree, Russ.
Get her on the show.
Let's
get Mum on the show.
Yeah, I go home.
It hasn't gone to your head.
You do seem incredibly balanced.
I've been in this. The point I'm trying to make is I've been in this game a very, very long time, right? And I've met God knows how many people, and some of them are complete arses, and some of them, majority are fabulous. And every now and then you meet someone and go, Christ almighty, your ego, mate. I don't know how you get in the room. You need the O2 to have as a bedroom. I mean, it's just ludicrous. And I don't understand how they're happy. It's just a nightmare for me because I've never sought fame. It doesn't interest me at all. But when people are famous, like yourself, and now boom, you're riding a big wave that'll last for a while. It's interesting how you deal with it because it kind of defines you, doesn't it? Defines you how you're going to be.
I have funny moments where I really like. This is such a sidebar. I really like the garlic and herb 3 chicken thighs that you can get from the Morrison's rotisserie section, and often I'll leave the gym and go get them and eat them like a wild animal in my car, and then I think someone's just going to look into the car and see the incel from Hollyoaks eating like a pig.
Now that would make a great TikTok video. I have to say.
That would be just hilarious. And then, of course, the media captures it. Lonely TV star Angus eats through his sorrow outside supermarket. Shock probe horror. And you're just trying to mind your own business, have a bit of garlic chicken. That's how it works. We know
Angus,
that.
good luck with everything. And I echo what Russ says. You seem really, I was going to say, really decent young man, but that sounds ridiculously patronising. But a well-balanced human being. So
thank you very much.
Fair play to you. Fair play to you. And keep telling the stories.
And I'll tell you what, we need more of people like you who are balanced, who see the world as it really is, and have taken the blue pill, not the red pill, or the red pill, not the blue pill.
Sort of feels. I was saying this to a psychologist the other day. This now feels like it's going to be a life mission of mine, which was not something I was anticipating when I joined.
Tell me about it, Jesus.
I think it will live with me forever. I'm just, I think, out of worry and fear, but I balance it with a degree of hope, I think. And if I can do something to try and help just one person, then I'll be quite proud.
I'd say you already are. I'd say
you already have.
Just by how you be, by the subjects you cover, by the skills that you use for the benefit of other people, I'd say you're ticking a lot more boxes than you might give yourself credit for, sir.
It's interesting because what you won't know, I mean, some people will write to you and, oh, thank you so much, you help. But what you won't know is the vast number of people who will be affected by this and go, geez, even if it gives them pause for thought, you know.
I sometimes think that. I think someone could be in a desperate state and just find one of these videos, one of these interviews online, maybe years later, and you never, ever know what path could unfold for them just because of one insight they received by listening to a conversation like this. And for that, it's all worth it for me.
Entirely.
Well, if this is your life mission, if it is,
then keep us updated. We want all the updates, all the details.
Anything if we can, I mean, we are dedicated to mental health and well-being. That's what we do. We don't do showy stuff. We don't do music. That's what we do. That's the whole basis why we set it up. So, me and Howard. So, anything we can do, you know where we are. Julia knows where I am. 24 hours a day, it would seem at the moment. So, next time you see her, just say, all you have to say to her and see her face is, Russ says, boobtastic. That's it.
I'm not sure I want to say that to her.
Just say that.
I can only apologise, Angus.
No. It's a running. She started it. It's a running gag. It's a running gag between me and Julie. All right.
But I really appreciate you guys having me on and
don't be silly.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for finding the time.
Great respect for the acting profession. So fair play to you, sir.
Well done,
you. For giving me the time. Anyway,
take care.
All the best.
Have a lovely rest of your day.
Bye. Thank you.
And you
Bye.
too, sir. Bye-bye. What a nice chat. I need to correct myself here. It wasn't single white anything, and it certainly wasn't desperately seeking Susan. It was single blonde something, and I can't remember. Mr. E.
Oh, don't ask
Call him
him.
my producer.
He doesn't know. He phones me at night. He always phones me at night. I never pick up the phone to him at night. I'm very tickled with these. What do you want on yours, by the way? Well, he's gone now. What do you want on yours? Where are you going? No, we can see the back of your head. Longy. Oh, DJ Longy. What are the chances you found a hoodie with your name and the initials DJ?
He wants to see my bottom on men's radio.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's an exciting thing. This virtual reality. So I was watching two really interesting documentaries.
Hold on, I'm going to get my producers to do some research for me. Film about 15 years ago, single blonde something about a man that falls in love with someone that doesn't exist on the internet and commits murder, and it's her mother doing the gaslighting.
Single blonde.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, it's this virtual reality stuff. It's to not be concerned about, or not look at it with some degree of trepidation. Is like saying, well, the internet, it's never going to catch on, right? If you imagine that all these big manufacturers are already built their shops there, but there's nothing there, you understand, it's just digital framing. That people are buying and selling properties, this NFT bollocks, people making millions buying and selling properties online. I don't mean that you can go to it. There's nothing there. It's all digital.
It's how can I put this? If it just turns out another sort of Wild West, it's going to be a boom and bust thing, another sort of unregulated boom and bust, you know, like all the .com booms and busts. It's just going to be another one of those. Yeah. What I will say, though, there's two sides to everything. No, it's none of those. Two sides to everything. I must say virtual reality. I've got an Oculus.
Oh, you have?
Oh, it's brilliant, and I love it. But I use it for fun. It's fun, and I like having people around, putting them in it, watching them get chased by dinosaurs, screaming,
Scary,
taking
huh?
it off. And
Scary as hell.
Pardon?
It's scary as hell.
Oh,
It's
I love
so
it. It's
realistic. If you think that Neil and I just say, "Oh, for goodness' sake," it's because you haven't worn it. There's one
there
thing.
is a,
So
there
my
is a
son
video
said to
on
me,
there. There's a video on there of the first moon, of the first astronauts that went at the first moon landing.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
Interactive experience.
And no, we're talking about different ones. And it's just a 7-minute movie, and it's a commentary, and you're in space looking back at the Earth with a commentary of what it was like to first land on the moon. And it's so profound. I've seen fully grown, macho builder types come out of it in tears because it is so profound. So if it's that powerful, then surely it can be used for good purpose. I completely agree with everything you say. In the wrong hands, it could be boom and bust or deadly in worst case scenario.
Let's be honest with human nature. What's the biggest application? Porn. That's where they'll make their
Yes,
millions.
you can get 3D porn. So I understand. So someone told me.
That's where it's guaranteed it's going to happen. And that's another thing about the loneliness, is that people who are addicted to porn, one, it's difficult to then form real relationships.
Yes,
because
it is a distorted view of
all the research shows that you are presented with the most attractive women, the most compliant, or men, whatever your orientation. I'm not going to get into all of that. But you know what I'm saying? Whatever it is, they're the most glamorous, they're the sexiest, they're the most compliant, they're whatever. And life isn't like that. Life isn't like that.
No, and that can be a danger if people take that entitled attitude.
It is a danger because it's another way of being unable to form real relationships with real people, and we all have terrible faults. We're human. We're not the porn star, because you don't know them in real life, And this is the thing.
On the positive side of VR, I must say this to balance it, though. My producer, and he's given me permission to talk about this, Mr. E, Ken Evans, my producer. When his dad was a
producer, I've got a dog.
Your mini schnauzer is your producer.
She produced something last night.
Thank you for sharing.
Cheeky little bitch.
But Ken's dad used to be in a nursing home, and he would take this VR in and show his dad scenes from his childhood. And he brought his dad back from sort of that kind of dead eyes zombie to a real living, responding human being.
Beautiful thing.
You can come and tell him yourself, Ken, that they've used it in pain control, because if you can take your attention off it for long enough, then what you put your attention on increases, blah blah blah, and all that sort of thing. So there are incredible healing modalities being developed in virtual reality, because quite simply it feels so real. Can I get Ken to tell you about?
There's one. No, you've explained it very eloquently. It's a beautiful thing. We'll get Ken on, another time. It is so real. There's one thing. I think it's called The Plank, not the famous Eric Sykes film.
That was a great film. I remember that.
God, that was great. My dad loved that. And the plank is, you get in a lift. So you're in New York, and you believe you're in New York, and you get in a lift. Press the button on the lift, and up you go. Now I'm standing in the middle of someone's flat, right? But I'm not. I'm in New York, and I'm going up to the top of a skyscraper. The doors of the lift, elevator, open. And you're about 100 stories up.
On a plane.
Yeah? And coming out of the front of the lift is a plank.
Yeah.
It's a plank of wood. And my son is saying, go on, Dad, go on, walk out. I couldn't move. Because heights, I know you wouldn't think 20 years of flying, heights terrify me. Not when I'm in a building, but changing light bulbs is a big deal. I'm not kidding. So I couldn't move. Now, the logical me, there's a part of me saying, you're standing in a living room in a flat. Nothing can possibly happen to you. And every other part of me, 98% of me is going, you're going to die.
Yeah, the reason for that.
I couldn't move.
The reason for that is found in psychology, because we have a conscious and unconscious mind. The
Ooh.
conscious mind is the logical factor going, I'm in a living room. There's nothing to worry about here.
Yeah.
The logical factor is when you're down the pub. I'm down the pub having a drink with friends. I'm not really on a roller coaster. But the unconscious mind, because it bypasses the conscious, doesn't know. That's why you can watch a horror film and get scared when you know it's not real. That's why you can watch a porn film and there's no real woman in the room and apparently you get turned on, so I'm told. But it doesn't know it's not real. Do you see what I mean? But it feels real.
I can't tell you how powerful this was. I was absolutely shocked.
Yes, it is.
There's another thing where you can be a boxer and you're in Madison Square Gardens and it's a title fight. So you're suddenly in the ring and you look around you and there's 20,000 people in the ring, in the audience, beg your pardon, you're in the ring. And that alone is really overwhelming. And then you look across and in the other corner is your opponent, who is a freaking hulking brute of like Mike Tyson, but even worse.
Yeah, I could take it.
And I was like, really, I'm going to have that crap beaten out of me. Now, again, the logic says, for goodness sake, nothing's going to physically touch you. You're standing in someone's living room, stop being an idiot. I was terrified, absolutely terrifying.
Asa Don Brown says our unconscious mind can also be divided, causing internal conflict. I'm doing a lot. Can I share this? I'm doing an awful lot. Go ahead. Go on. Work on myself at the moment. I've joined this new thing, and it's a year long, and I'm going into a year of commitment and personal development. And I'm not going to talk about it much unless you ask me to. But if I get some nuggets,
what it is.
Mental health insight, I will share. Well, it's becoming more of yourself, because that is our former primary relationship. The relationship we have with ourselves. It all begins from there. I think.
What does that mean?
It means if you're the best version of yourself and your cup overfloweth, you have plenty to give others.
How do you deal with the fact when you just think, I have been giving, I got nothing left. My reservoir is empty. I'm done.
Well, that happened to me because that's
but that's what I'm at. I feel really drained.
Right.
Be honest. I'll be honest. I don't come on bullshit on this show.
I learned it the hard way. Get selfish. Put yourself first. Fill your own cup first. Let other people do the same for a while, for as long as you need to, and be willing to receive help. Don't try and do it all alone.
Yeah, but you got to. That then comes down to trust issues, doesn't it? Because you're vulnerable, and if you're vulnerable, you got to be able to trust.
Then I would.
How many times, Neil Orange Peel? How many times have we trusted people? I'm gonna posit a question to you. This is side issue. Sidebar. No names.
Sure.
No name. Please don't ask me names.
Sure.
How would you deal with this? And I put this question out to all the gang all over the world. Somebody I used to work with, no names.
Sure.
Not seen for nearly 20 years. Not seen. And I start to get bombarded with messages to effect introductions to various things.
Right.
And the nice me goes, oh, yeah, I should do that. And then the logical me kicks in and goes, this isn't a friend of yours. This is someone you knew, you see on social media. They're asking you for your contacts that you've spent a lifetime building up. Why? So when I politely, after thinking about it, I stalled, which if you had empathy, you'd say, kind of overstepped the line here. When I went back and kind of politely said no, whoa, it wasn't good. And yeah, what would you have done? I'm curious. I'm catching you off guard deliberately. What would you have done?
I would have probably, I might have told a white lie and say, sorry, I don't have any contacts in that.
But they know I do.
Okay. in that case, I would politely say no if I didn't want to do it, or I might ask for something in return.
And am I wrong in thinking that? And don't just leave it to this thing. I'm opening up the whole conversation. Am I wrong in thinking it's just a bloody cheek?
Yes and no. It's great to have a network, because the third thing, actually coming full circle, what we were talking about a second ago about burnout, which you say you're close to. Third, I would say, when you mentioned trust, and that's how all this started, is having the right people around you, having the right people around you, people that you know you can trust. And right now, thank you, universe, I've got a fantastic support system, great skills, great friends, and it all sort of blends into one. And I'm also part of a greater network, which I share with my friends that might need it. So, but a network, a benevolent network, you contribute to as well as taking from. And if there's a balance of giving and receiving, and everyone's happy with that, that's absolutely fine. We can benefit each other. Why the hell shouldn't we? And I completely agree with that. But if it's just taking, and no giving, then you're well within your rights to say no. You can't give from an empty cup.
Well, it's not just that. If it was a close friend, if you asked me for something, it's more likely to happen. If it was a close friend or a friend, but someone you haven't seen for 20 years, it's just like, I mean, I don't write to all the authors. I on Twitter, on a daily basis, chit chat with some of the leading authors in the world. I mean, some of the biggest writers in the world. If I had a 10,000th of their success, trust me, I would be more than satisfied. Talking about the leading names. I don't write to them and said, hey, Patricia Cornwall, what's the name of your agent? Can you tell me your agent and your publisher? I wouldn't dream of doing that. I don't go to Anthony Horowitz, who's been fantastic supportive. Hey, Anthony, get an introduction to your agent, will you? I wouldn't think of that. What an
I think it's okay if you offer something first. If it's give and receive. If I wanted,
I'm just curious.
If I wanted something from you and wanted an introduction, I've got a policy. I can ask anyone for anything as long as I'm okay with a no. That includes whether it's introduction or a date, if you know what I mean. And I've had plenty of no's on both. Hard that it is to believe.
I can't believe that.
I know. However, but I would always try and give something of equal value in return. And that's the great of it. And it's best a network is everyone's got a sense of abundance. There's absolutely enough for everyone, and we network and share, and we all benefit. And that's
so. What would be? And I'm not making it about myself. I'm just trying to do this as a subject. What would be the benefit to me? None whatsoever.
The only one I can think of is the benefit that you were abundant enough that you had that to share. So you would know your own abundance in the sense of giving it.
It's interesting because what it comes down to, I think that's not really an answer to that. I think what it comes down to is the way that people, and I'm not talking about me, I'm generalizing now, that people can do things and ask you for things or take actions, and we, because of our psychological makeup, start to question that it must be us. Whereas you turn around and you go, wait a minute, who's the bad player here? Who's taken a cheat? Who's done an imposition? Who's asked for something? I'm not talking about this particular, this is a nothing. But how many times do we go through life? People watching and listening all over the world now. How many times have people done things so they, see, this is it. Pushy never works. Be open so people can come to you. Fair enough. Pushy doesn't work. I know. No, I hate pushy. Because very pushy people are usually thick as mints in as much as they think you don't realize what they're doing.
I think as long as there's a quid pro quo, as long as there's an equal balance of giving and receiving, it wouldn't matter if you gave and received £1 million or a penny. It doesn't matter. Asa Don Brown, you've hit the word boundaries. Boundaries. Exactly. Boundaries. Thank you, Asa Don Brown. I hope I would have got there in my thinking, but you got there before me. It's important to create
that's because he's a pro.
Do you remember when we had that lovely lady, Helen Snape, on the show?
Of course I remember Helen Snape.
She's the reformed people pleaser. Nearly 2 decades in a narcissistic controlling relationship, and now she has a whole wonderful body of work out, just to remind you if you didn't see it, on how to basically say no, because you need to say no to fill your own cup. But when your own cup overfloweth, then you naturally, like Johnny Appleseed, spread it to everyone, it joyfully and effortlessly as well.
Sounds like Johnny STD.
Here we go. Here we go. I've got the answer to your question. It's just come to me. If it feels like an effort or a struggle, or if it doesn't feel like a hell yes, it's a hell no. All right.
It's not. It's not that it's an effort. If a really good friend, I'm talking about a proper friend, said, Russ, I'm really stuck. Could you come over and take me to Heathrow? Or whatever it might be. You know, you could say, well, get a bloody Uber, you lazy bastard. Or you could say, yeah, of course. Because they're a pal. Because they're a pal. All right. That's entirely different. But when someone you don't really know crosses the boundaries and says, I want X, Y, and Z, and you start to think, I really should do it.
Crosses the what? Crosses the
boundaries. Crosses the boundaries.
You just answered your own question.
Yes. You see, Elizabeth Green is making two good points here in New York City. Elizabeth's saying, Russ, you don't have to justify your no, but we do. This is what we do to ourselves.
But she's right. You don't have
How many people watching and listening now think they have to justify saying no, as opposed to sod off, the answer's no, what a bloody cheek. And don't have to justify your no to yourself. We do. I think that is the human condition.
You don't have to.
No.
But that's the conditioning process.
But Helen Snape, right, who was a great guest. I just think it's an interesting thing, even as we go into late middle age. I live to be 500.
Early middle age for me.
Well, bloody old middle age. It's like you've got to learn to just say no and not beat the crap out of yourself.
And it's not a new subject. William Shakespeare said, "To thine own self be true," 400 years ago. So it's not a new subject.
What did he know?
A lot about human nature, it would seem. So I think, should we get Helen back on the show? Shall I see if she'd like to come back?
Yeah, sure, of course.
It's obviously Helen back. Sorry, it's obviously an important subject for a lot of people, and it is boundaries. And I had a big thing. I had a recent lesson on boundaries. I had to put a boundary in where I never thought I'd have to before, but I did. And do you know what?
Was it Ken? Raiding the fridge?
No, it wasn't.
So Ken,
it worked out
buy your own bloody food.
While we're talking about Ken, we're talking about virtual reality. He's asked me to point out not only did he do that VR treatment for his dad, but for everyone in the care home. And he was actually approached by universities that wanted, and here we go again. He was asked to basically do all that for nothing, so he had to say no. And he was willing to do it. He loved doing it. He could see the results, and I've backed him.
And they had the money.
And I've backed him on it.
They
from
had
that day forth.
The money.
Yeah,
I get inundated from pals on social media who kept getting asked. There might be comedians, well known, might be musicians, well known, might be actors, well known. Oh, can you come and do this? It's up in so-so. What's the fee? Oh, there isn't a fee. Why, I'm not talking about charity work. I'm not talking about charity. Well, why would I do that? This is a commercial venture. Oh, yeah, but it's good for your profile. Oh, shut up. You're not 22 years old.
You already have a profile. I think people like us have paid our dues. I do charge for charity events, but on the caveat that most of the time we raise 10 times what I charge.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
So if it's a win-win-win.
I'll tell you something else. Neil is right. In case you think, oh, that's disgusting. Let's grow up about this. I've stopped doing it because I did so much for decades of this, right? Decades. And I'm not patting myself on the back, but when I charged, I was treated really well. And when I didn't charge, treated like crap. Fascinating.
I call that the Stella Artois phenomenon. You remember that advert, reassuringly expensive? People like to feel they're getting value, and if you've charged more, the perceived value, and not perceived because you're a professional, is much greater. It's interesting, isn't it? So another reason to charge. You can't help the poor by becoming one of them any more than you can help unwell people become well by becoming ill yourself. You have to fill your own cup. To thine own self be true.
Oxygen mask on an aeroplane.
And then pick
That's
your
what I
favourite
have to
child.
say.
Exactly.
That is it. That is it. Thank you for
Shall
your
I contact
wonderful
Helen
comments.
Snape?
Well, not now. It's a show.
No, not now. I mean, afterwards, dude.
Yeah, we've already said that. Definitely.
Okay. I will.
Hey, and let me know if you want. If I don't mean you, if one would like merchandise, we can create it for you. It'd be fun.
And also,
All
if
right.
there's any subjects you'd like discussed and broken down here, maybe
Totally,
things you're struggling with, I have a network of contacts, and I will find these people and bring them on. So let us know who you want and what you want on here, and we will listen to your feedback and provide. Let me know.
It's your show.
Hit me up
You
on
are the
Facebook. Thank you to
stars.
Mr. E, my producer.
And thank you to Julie Voice. Last comment. Great show as always. Thank you. Thank you, Julie, down in Houston, in Texas.
One very quick recommendation. If you
on.
go to YouTube, type in Megan with Maghan, Megan Trainor, No. And that is the song for people pleasers. Have a listen to that song. It sounds like a Destiny's Child song, and it's the perfect song for recovering people pleasers. Megan Trainor, No. It's brilliant.
You said the word Megan. I'm going to have a lie
Not that
down.
one. Not that one.
I'm
Not
going to
that
have to
one.
have a lie down. Goodbye, everybody. I can't take it. I can't take it.
Oh, God, what have I done? Sorry.
It was going so well. I thought we were going to get through the whole hour. We didn't. Bye.
I'm sorry. I can only apologise.